that Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm going to talk about the defensive line depth chart and what it looks like going into training camp. And of course, there's a lot of things that can change in training camp, in the preseason, whether that be due to play, due to injury. There's a lot of things. But I kind of want to take a glimpse of what it looks like right now and what some of the players have to do to kind of elevate their position. Because I think the 49ers know that defensive line is going to be a huge impact on what they do. And they invested a ton, especially when you look at the interior part of the defensive line. The 49ers let go a couple of interior guys. They let Javon Hargrave go. They made a June 1 designation on him. They let Malik Collins leave in free agency. And those were, probably Hargrave wasn't as eyebrow raising as Malik Collins. Malik Collins kind of caught everyone off guard. And you're wondering what exactly is the 49ers going to do. And I think we all looked at the draft and said, there's some really good defensive tackles in this draft. The 49ers could definitely address it and address it with several picks. But I think we all thought as well that they were going to address it in free agency. They did not. They didn't spend money on the defensive line. They waited until the draft and then went out and got a couple of big-time studs when it came to defensive line. And they've also addressed it with undrafted free agents as well. But how does this thing stack up? Have the 49ers got enough talent to be able to withstand some of these teams in the way that they've been running at the 49ers recently? Well, the 49ers put an emphasis on the run game. The 49ers put an emphasis on stopping the run. Whenever you go get a guy like Alfred Collins, you have a focus on stopping the run. Because Alfred Collins, if he was anything, was a dominant run stopper at Texas. And so that was a direct signal to what the 49ers were going to do along the interior defensive line. Now, they do have incumbents still on this team. The 49ers still have guys that they think can compete, guys that can make plays for this football team that aren't the drafted rookies. So is it a foregone conclusion that Alfred Collins and CJ West are going to start for this 49ers team? We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk it out. We're going to put this depth chart together and say, hey, this is where it looks going into training camp. This is where we think it's going to be as we move through training camp and preseason and into the regular season. And so we're all going to do that on this episode. That's going to come up just after this. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening to audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Belief Network, please give it a 5-star rating. And if you are going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing, and we're into the NBA and NHL playoffs. Bet Online has more ways to stay in on the action, the latest latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from MLB, NBA, NHL, and UFC, BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. So, we know what the 49ers did in the draft. They were purposeful in who they were going to get. And when you looked at the 49ers roster going into the draft, defensive tackle was a real issue. The 49ers had, if you wanted to count these guys, starters, 2 guys that could potentially start along the interior part of the defensive line. First off, you had Jordan Elliott, and then you had Kevin Givens, who they brought back. So last year they signed Jordan Elliott from the Cleveland Browns, and he came over, and the 49ers were very high on Jordan Elliott being a rotational piece behind Malik Collins and behind Javon Hargrave. They felt like he was going to be able to come in and stop the run consistently and then give you a little bit of upside when it came to pass rush. But Jordan Elliott struggled mightily against the run last year. When teams decided to go exclusively with duo blocks and get a vertical push on the defensive tackles, Jordan Elliott wasn't able to consistently either penetrate and get skinny through those blocks or to anchor and hold his ground. A lot of times giving up ground and allowing plays to happen. So when you looked at him compared to Malik Collins was the better player last year, but he's the more expensive player. So the 49ers decided to go a different route and keep Jordan Elliott instead of keeping Malik Collins. Now, Kevin Givens has a 49ers, homegrown talent. They have developed him and turned him into a consistent player, but another guy that really struggles when it comes to stopping the run consistently. So the 49ers had to make sure that they address the defensive line in a big way. And they did. CJ West, Alfred Collins being your second round pick, and then CJ West being a fourth round pick. Now, coming in right away when you're looking at depth chart, I think that the 49ers have one spot available initially for a rookie. Now, I'm not saying the very first training camp practice, if you go out there to Santa Clara, that Alfred Collins or CJ West will be taking first team reps. I don't think that's the case. That's not normally how the 49ers go about it. They make you earn it. And it doesn't mean that they won't take that spot quickly. But I do think day one, when we get to training camp, it's going to be Jordan Elliott and Kevin Givens who are getting first team reps at defensive tackle. So those guys are going to be the first guys playing D tackle. And then I think after that, you'll have the second group be Alfred Collins, potentially, and CJ West. The question is, where do you see Evan Anderson in this mix? So I think that right away it'll be Givens and Elliott. And then I think probably 2 weeks into training camp, probably 1 week after pads have come on, I believe that it's going to become Jordan Elliott and Alfred Collins. I think those are going to be your starting defensive tackles for the remainder of training camp and through the preseason. I think Alfred Collins is going to step up in a big way. I think the way he stops the run is going to be very unique. I think he's going to have one heck of a battle when he's out there competing, especially when he's competing against Dominic Pooney. I think that could be some interesting competition at camp. So I think Alfred Collins does move into the starting lineup about 1 week after pads. I don't think it takes very long for him to get up into that position and take over that spot. So when we're looking at defensive line, that's how I think it happens. I think that next group is where it gets really interesting because I do think Kevin Givens is going to be on the next group. So the question mark is going to be, who is the other guy? Is it going to be CJ West playing one tech, or is it going to be Evan Anderson playing one tech? I think early on, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't put Evan Anderson in that role and allow CJ West to kind of rotate, play three tech sometimes in place of Kevin Givens and one tech sometimes in place of Evan Anderson, where he's kind of go back and forth between the dual roles. I think they'll do a little bit of that with Collins and also with Jordan Elliott. I think they're going to try to be versatile with these guys' alignments between, one tech, three tech, 2I. I think they're going to kind of move them around a little bit. So I think that that's how it's going to look initially. I do expect, this is my personal belief, I do expect, and I've heard people say Evan Anderson's going to start. I don't think Evan Anderson's going to start. I'm going to keep it real. I like Evan Anderson, but Evan Anderson is a one tech. He's a plug. He's a run stopper. That's it. There's not upside when it comes to pass rush. Alfred Collins, upside, pass rush. CJ West, upside, pass rush. Kevin Givens and Jordan Elliott, they can pass rush. Evan Anderson cannot pass rush. So I do believe that there is going to be a little bit of a struggle for Evan Anderson when it comes to competing with the two new defensive linemen because they're going to stop the run well and they're going to be able to rush the passer. So with that being said, I think it goes Elliott, Alfred Collins, then group two. Once we get into the preseason, I think it's going to be Kevin Givens and CJ West. And I think that third group of defensive linemen is going to be Evan Anderson and Kalia Davis. And Davis still has upside, but Davis's back is against the wall firmly. Kalia Davis is going to have to show up and show out. And I think all of us got so hyped last year, his first preseason game. He showed that he's got dynamic ability and athleticism. He moves vertically. He can penetrate. He can get after the quarterback. And we just saw a guy that was a disruptor, a guy that wreaked havoc on opposing offenses in that game. And then he got hurt and he was gone. And when he came back, he just wasn't the same. You would see a moment here or there, but you never saw a consistency of a player that could be dynamic. And now the 49ers have basically passed him by, right? They went and got West. They went and got Collins. They weren't counting on Kalia Davis. So you've got guys now that are on the brink of being out of here. Kalia Davis and Evan Anderson. And people are probably, not going to agree with me on Evan Anderson because a lot of people really love him. Like I said, I think he's a solid player. But he's not CJ West. He's not Alfred Collins. And it's not close. And Jordan Elliott has starting experience. So I don't think that he's going to overtake Jordan Elliott because Elliott also has the ability to get a pass rush, which Evan Anderson doesn't. He's not a penetrator. That's not what he does, and that's okay. That's not his game. Kalia Davis, though, is. Now, another guy that we got to talk about when we're talking about D-line is Sebastian Valdez. So Sebastian Valdez was a guy that they brought in undrafted free agency out of Washington. And, he's a big physical dude who is extremely strong. And I think that plays well for what the 49ers want. 6'3", 301, but he had 34 reps of 225. He's a penetrator. He's a 3-tech. And I think that they're going to like his ability to step in there and maybe have a chance to, make something happen. So he's another fun guy to see what they do with him. Other than that's all they have for the interior defensive line. They didn't add anybody else. The rest of the guys are out on the edge. So when you're looking at the 49ers depth chart, I think it's pretty simple what it's going to be. And I think this might be what it looks like going into the regular season, barring any injuries. I think Jordan Elliott and Alfred Collins are going to be your starting defensive tackles. And I know a lot of people hate Jordan Elliott, the way he played, and it wasn't consistent last year. I get it. I'm just telling you what I think the 49ers are going to do. And I think Jordan Elliott, Kyle Shanahan talked very glowingly about Elliott last year. He does have upside when it comes to pass rush. And I just think that they won't want to start two rookies initially. But Jordan Elliott and Alfred Collins, I think, are going to be the starting two defensive tackles. I think the second group is going to be CJ West. And I think it's going to be Kevin Givens. And then I think your third group is going to be Evan Anderson and Kalia Davis. And one of those guys isn't going to make the team. They're going to keep 5 interior defensive linemen. And I think Evan Anderson and Kalia Davis are on the bubble. Anderson is your better run stopper. He's a solid 1-tech. Now you have 2 other defensive linemen that can play 1-tech in Alfred Collins and CJ West. So do you need Evan Anderson? That's a question mark. Kalia Davis he's going to have to wreak havoc. But I think he's the one that's really got his back against the wall. I think they were more likely to keep Evan Anderson over Kalia Davis. Kalia Davis, I believe, is going into the last year of his contract as well. So we'll see. And then the guy out there, we'll see what Sebastian Valdez does. And if he can end up, making a push for this team, I think that he's got the strength. He's got a lot of work to do. But that one's going to be interesting to see how that works. Now, let's move to the edge. Let's talk about these edge defenders that are going to be out there. And, of course, Nick Bosa is going to start at edge. That is a foregone conclusion that he's going to be able to do that. Now, I think when we show up to training camp, once again, I think people are going to be surprised to see that Mikael Williams is not opposite of Nick Bosa starting from day one. I think he's going to get an opportunity to start at some point. Don't get me wrong. But I think the early reps are going to go to Yetur Gross-Matos. This is just the way things are done in football. Yes, we know Mikael Williams is a stud. He was the number 11th overall pick, and he's going to eventually be the starter opposite of Nick Bosa. But when you show up day one, that rookie is not your starter. That rookie is behind Yetur Gross-Matos, and he goes out and competes, and he pushes Gross-Matos. And that makes Gross-Matos a better player, and that makes Mikael Williams a better player. Now, once Mikael Williams shows on the field, in practice, in preseason, that he has surpassed Yetur Gross-Matos, he becomes the starter. This is the best way to make it happen. You don't give somebody something until they earn it. So I do believe it's going to be Gross-Matos. It's going to be Nick Bosa at the 2 defensive end spots starting at training camp. I won't be shocked if by game 1, Mikael Williams is starting. And that's kind of where I'm leaning. But I'm just telling you, if you go out to training camp day 1, this is what you're going to see. Then after that, I think that's when you see Mikael Williams in training camp. I think he will be the next defensive end. And then I think it's going to be Robert Beal. And that might shock some people because they love Sam Okwuonu. But I believe that Sam Okwuonu is going to be put into a role of being a designated pass rusher. He played the run decent last year. It wasn't really good. It was just decent. But Robert Beal Jr. played the run great. And so this is what I'm talking about. In this group 2 initially, I think that it's Mikael Williams, and then I think on the other side is Robert Beal Jr. for base downs. When you get to third down, Robert Beal Jr. comes off the field, and then that's when you get Sam Okwuonu on the field, and he becomes your designated pass rusher. Basically, you take the strengths of Robert Beal and the strengths of Okwuonu, and you put them together and you make one player. And I think that that's what they do. Now, at some point, Mikael Williams is going to start over Yetur Gross-Matos, and Gross-Matos is going to be a part of that group. And you're going to have Gross-Matos and Beal playing opposite each other with Okwuonu coming in. So I think Okwuonu probably in training camp will get a mixture of Team 2 and Team 3 snaps. And so kind of being on the A and B group, I think that, that'll be really good for him. And I think he's going to be a designated pass rusher this season. I think that makes the most sense for how he sits within this roster. And ultimately, that's the whole goal is Bosa's not going to take that many reps during training camp. It'll be hit and miss. So getting the extra reps for Mikael and the extra reps for Gross-Matos are going to be important. And so I do want to see them mix it up a little bit, but that's what I think is going to happen when you look at the interior defensive line and then the exterior defensive line with these edge rushers, is Okwuonu and Beal kind of working together. Now, there's some other interesting guys that are, of course, on this team. And I think one of the ones that's kind of interesting because of his size, and we talked about Okwuonu so much last year, is Teron Jackson. Teron Jackson's just 26 years old. He was originally with the Philadelphia Eagles, but he's been with Carolina. He's been with Philly again. And, he keeps getting moved a little bit. But he's a guy that has been able to create opportunities. He was very good in college. He had 26 and a half sacks in college. He has a really good motor. He's a tweener. So he's very much Sam Okwuonu-esque. So I think that this is another guy that could be in that mold and working towards potentially being a designated pass rusher. So I think that he's interesting. So I'm curious to see what Teron Jackson does. You got him and Okwuonu that are kind of built the same way. And so the 49ers have, like, right now, 2 different types of players, that are on their roster. You have the big physical, right? Gross-Matos, the 6'5", 265-pound plus defensive end that's going to set the edge. That's Gross-Matos. That's Robert Beal Jr. That's Mikael Williams. That's Nick Bosa. Then you have the more intermediate guy. That's Sam Okwuonu. That's Teron Jackson. So those are some interesting guys. You also have Alex Barrett. So Alex Barrett's another one that he's been around forever. But he's another intermediate guy. He's 6'2", 250 pounds. He's been with the 49ers practice squad off and on. So you got guys that are kind of like all in the same category of player. And of course, with Alex Barrett, he's been in the league for a while. He's been with the 49ers for a while. He's 31 years old. And so you've got, lots of veterans. Barrett, though, that makes sense. To be kind of in the mix with Okwuonu, with Teron Jackson, similar guys, that makes a lot of sense. But then they also have Jonathan Garvin, who the 49ers brought in last year. He's been with Green Bay. and with the 49ers, and he's built kind of more in the Mikael Williams, Robert Beal Jr., big physical guy, 6'4", 260 pounds. And so you've got these different types of players, and I think that they are going to kind of match these guys up. And I talked about Okuwanu kind of matching with Robert Beal Jr., and I think the same thing happens with a guy like Alex Barrett. I think that they are going to take him and they're going to match him with Teron Jackson. And so those guys will kind of work together. And then with Garvin, we're just going to see what he can do. And I know a lot of people, we're kind of fans of Garvin last year. He had some opportunities in training camp and he did pretty good. So there's some stuff there. So how does this thing shake out when it comes to depth chart? Well, I think when we get to I'll give you the training camp depth chart first, and then I'll give you the regular season depth chart and how I believe it's going to be, and we can talk about who's on the bubble. So your training camp depth chart at edge is going to be Bosa and Gross Matos at the two ends. Your second unit in your base downs is going to be Mikael Williams, and it's going to be Robert Beal Jr. I think in past sets, Sam Okuwanu will come in your Bravo group in place of Robert Beal Jr. Then I think in your third group, that's when it's going to be fun because I think you're going to get Teron Jackson and Alex Barrett together, and then I think Jonathan Garvin's kind of in the back part of this. Now, when you look at the game day roster, when you look at the 53-man roster, of course, you're going to keep 5 defensive ends at most. I think that's what's going to make it difficult for some of these guys to make the team. If I had to guess right now for your game 1 starters, I would guess Nick Bosa and Mikael Williams start at defensive ends because I do think he'll overtake Gross Matos by then. I think that the Bravo group will be Gross Matos and Robert Beal Jr. They will be the ones who set the edge. And then when you get into obvious pass downs, that's when you're going to see Sam Okuwanu. I think he will be the 5th. I think that means your guys who are on the bubble to make this team, I think, are Alex Barrett, Teron Jackson, Jonathan Garvin. And, one of them is going to have to outplay Teron Jackson's going to either have to outplay Sam Okuwanu or Garvin's going to have to outplay Robert Beal Jr. So I don't think that this is going to happen. I think that they're invested in Beal Jr. and he's proven last year he's a good run stopper. And I think that using him and Okuwanu together, it gets the job done, and it allows you to have a rotation because I do think that they're going to have, certain looks that are kind of built around certain groupings together. Like, for instance, when they're looking to stop the run, you have Mikael Williams at one edge. He's the best run stopper edge, not named Nick Bosa. So you have those two guys together. And then on the interior, you go Alfred Collins and you go CJ West. So I do think that CJ West is going to be one of the best run stoppers right off the bat. That's why I think eventually he will get in the starting lineup. I just don't think it's for week 1. I think it's going to take him a little bit of time. But that'll be a good thing for the 49ers stopping the run. And then when you go to your best set when it comes to rushing the passer, you're going to have Bosa, you're going to have Mikael Williams, you're going to have Gross Matos and Sam Okuwanu. And you go with a NASCAR package. I do believe at some point CJ West or Alfred Collins are going to be in there sometimes on the D-line as well, because it is nice to get a push. CJ West has proven to be the better pass rusher between him and Alfred Collins, but Alfred Collins might impress us a little bit once he gets into a new system. I think playing in Chris Kaceric's system is going to be very important for his success. So I expect him to kind of upgrade and be better, but we do need some guys on the interior sometimes. You don't always want to go speed rushers. There's sometimes, especially quarterbacks like Kyler Murray, for instance, you want to collapse the pocket. And Alfred Collins / CJ West pressing up the middle of the field while getting some edge guys that can collapse the pocket from the outside with Bosa and Mikael Williams could be a great situation, especially if you have quick linebackers like D. Winters and Nick Martin, right? That plays into it. Those guys can run and track guys down. Now, you might want to go hyper athleticism, and put other guys out there. So here it is. The first game, starting defensive line in week 1 against Seattle. Nick Bosa, Mikael Williams, Alfred Collins, Jordan Elliott. That's what I think it's going to be. And so it's going to be fun, watching these guys compete during training camp. I don't think everything is figured out. I think it's going to be a process. And so, don't freak out when your guys, if you go to training camp, your guys aren't starting initially. They're going to work into it. They're going to give Alfred Collins and CJ West every opportunity to start. I think Alfred Collins has got more of an opportunity early, and then I think CJ West will kind of step up and get out there. Same with Mikael Williams. Mikael Williams is a monster. Just watching him, the way he moves, the guy's a physical freak. He's going to have an opportunity to get on the field at some point. And I know a lot of people are down on Gross Matos, but Gross Matos' game is really predicated on rushing from the inside on obvious pass downs. I think that's where he's going to be effective. And I'm hoping he can stay healthy because I think that ankle injury really did mess him up last year. Or it was a knee, maybe. Him and Leonard Floyd both got injured on back-to-back plays with the same play. It was something freaky. Floyd's wasn't as serious, and he was able to play. But Gross Matos, he came back too early, had to leave. Still ended up having 4 sacks last year. So I'm not done with the Gross Matos yet. But I do think Mikael Williams is going to take over and start. So fun time for the San Francisco 49ers and depth chart. Let me know what you think about the depth chart in the comment section down below. I want to know what you guys think about some of the guys later on. What do you think about an Evan Anderson or Teron Jackson? Let me know in the comment section. I think it's really interesting to hear what you have to say. Like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network. Please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.